Hello and welcome to another episode of Cinema Savvy. It's myself, George, and today I'm co-hosting with Chris. Sorry, go on,
Hey, it's good. Yeah, we've already talked about Infinity War quite a lot. I mean, there was my reaction video. We did trailer talk yesterday, but we aren't done yet. We've got a lot more comic book news to talk about. Not just Marvel, we've got DC in this episode as well. So
yeah,
it's just always the usual, really, isn't it? It just seems to be every week we get some new comic book news.
And I think because we've got 2 weeks of news, we've kind of got week one, which was all about Justice League, and we've got week two. Well, in the last 48 hours, it's all been about Marvel, and you've got a little bit of added in a tiny bit of Star Wars, a bit of Pixar, a bit of Murder on the Orient Express. I don't think people expected that one, but there's quite a bit. And as usual, we've got a box office breakdown, which is going to be very interesting today.
Yeah, I need to apologize for last week, by the way. So obviously there was no episode of the news last week. That was on me. I completely that's never happened before. I completely forgot we were meant to go live. So that's why we weren't live. That was on me. But as you just said, we're catching up with the 2 weeks of news. Is there a lot of news? I don't even know, really. We always tend to say there's not a lot, and then we always end up talking for about an hour anyway. But we'll rattle through pretty quickly.
I was going to say, I think usually these days it's... Well, I was going to say, you've missed one episode. I think there's been a couple where I've been asleep before we've hit record. And like you and Tate have had to like power through and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're all equal in that sense. But no, so if you guys haven't guessed by our pretty thumbnail or our headline, Avengers Infinity War trailer has been breaking records. And the main bit of news is the Avengers Infinity War trailer was released yesterday. Mm-hmm. And let's kick off by none other than pitching our other YouTube show, Trailer Talk, which we spoke about for about 45 minutes. Like we went in everything, we covered everything, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we wanted, what we want from the film, stuff like that. So that's worth having a look. I'm not gonna lie, it was so random. We didn't have a plan for it. We were all over the place, but it was good fun, and it saves us chatting about it for 20 minutes on this. But summed up, this trailer was perfect in every way. And today, Marvel has announced this broke the record for most trailer views in 24 hours. I think we spoke about this recently when Last Jedi came out. You had number one, which was It, with like 180 mil. Ridiculous, like the power of Facebook shares.
Basically. I did not know that It had such like a diehard fan base, but how wrong I was. And I think the comments stand testament to that on some of my earlier reaction ones. But yeah, when like we were saying that It is like the most viewed trailer, like for a horror movie over Star Wars, I'd have never guessed that.
I think with that, all I can remember is it being all over Facebook. Everyone shared it. And I think a lot of the views count when you share it. So to me, it's nonsense, but deep down, it had it. But now we can say, before we get to Infinity War, so you have number one on 180 mil. I think you have number two, which was Thor, Ragnarok, with like 130 mil. Then Last Jedi, like 127 mil. Avengers Infinity War trailer gained 230 million views inside one day. That is staggeringly scary, the fact that that can get so many views, but it's also kind of awesome that everybody saw it, because like this was all over Facebook. You couldn't scroll down without seeing a meme, someone else sharing it, someone linking the YouTube video. It trended on Twitter all day, and this had quite a lot of build-up as well. They released a poster the day before, basically saying the trailer's out tomorrow. For those that want to see it, it's basically just the original Avengers poster, the original Avengers logo with a tiny shine of some Infinity Stones, like foiled. It'd be a really nice poster, probably be some version for it in hand, but so they released that, and they've been teeing this up. But this trailer's out now, and as well as the trailer, we also had a special issue of Vanity Fair magazine, bit like what Star Wars did, where they did 4 covers, except they did 4 covers for the Avengers, and it still didn't fit the characters on. Then they've had a picture on the inside, like a spreadsheet. Basically, it might as well have been a spreadsheet. It's just like a white room, and the characters everywhere. It's a real mind fuck. Like, I can't wait for this film to come out. But I guess the main thing we can say from this is that Kevin Feige has been talking about Marvel's plans for the future. Years ago, I remember him saying, we've got this plan till 2027. So we're kind of here like, well, 10 more years. There you go. As of today, he says the MCU plans include 22 more movies across the next 20 years.
So we were talking about Star Wars a couple of weeks ago, weren't we? With when the new trilogy was announced, and we were sort of like adding it up, like when we think when the trilogy will be out, how old we will be, and I was saying like, oh, I'm going to be mid-30s or whatever it was. I can't even remember. This terrifies me. Like, I'm still probably going to be seeing Marvel movies when I'm at the age of 44, going on 45. That's terrifying.
Tom Holland will be an adult.
Old man Tom Holland, like Jesus.
Oh God, I just. And before we discuss that, I guess one of the other things he does say, because I'll get to ranting about this 20 years thing. He also spoke about the Avengers 4 that, well, before that, a bit of background is that obviously with Justice League coming out, there's been a lot of talk of is comic book films over? Are people done? Are they tired? Are they bored? Are they whatnot? I guess you'd be considering the Infinity War trailers probably already discouraged that thought. Yeah. But he did come out and talk about the Avengers 4 and what's going to happen. He basically said it will bring things you've never seen in superhero films, a finale. There will be 2 distinct periods, everything before Avengers 4 and everything after. I know it will not be in ways people are expecting it. Immediately, I said this isn't a finale because he's just told us he's got 22 films planned across 20 years.
Yeah, well, I think he means finale in terms of obviously where the story was setting up, but also probably long-running characters that we've seen, like maybe Iron Man, Captain America. We've talked about that, who we think is going to go and everything like that. But we've also talked about the fact that will people even care after Infinity War's done? Like, I know we're saying that now, like with superhero fatigue, but fair enough. This is sort of like the big finale, and it's bigger than ever, and it's being marketed that way. And the trailer shows that as well. But I mean, if everyone's favorites go, say if Thor does go, Cap, Iron Man, will people want to go and see an Avengers film when it's just Scarlet Witch, Black Panther, Doctor Strange? Like, the only way I can describe it is going back to like the 90s or something. Like, say you had Pokemon. Pokemon's all the rage. Everyone loves the first one, but then they do Generations. And then the original fans drop off and you have maybe some newcomers coming into it. Will it be a similar situation to that? Like, people will say my Avengers was Tony Stark, Cap, and then kids will say my Avengers was Doctor Strange. Like, I don't know how it's going to be. But another 20 years of these movies terrifies me. That idea of that, especially if they're going to keep with like 3 or 4 a year or however many they choose to do.
Well, that's what scares me more. You think, oh yeah, 22 films across 20 years, that's 1 a year. And you think, hold up. They've started doing 3 a year when it used to be 2 a year. Before that, it used to be 1 a year. Before that, it used to be 1 every sort of 2 years. I don't know. Like, I'm excited for this, but just knowing their plan, like there's being well prepared. Like in 20 years' time, we'll probably be on our like 11th on-screen Batman or something. But I don't really want to look past Avengers 4. Like, we can already guess that, okay, Avengers 5, they might not even do an Avengers 5. They might drop to standalone. You never know what he could have meant by that. But I'm imagining that, yeah, the team they're going to build for the future is Bucky as Captain America. You're going to have Tom Holland, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain Marvel. There's your 5 probably main Avengers. And I don't know about Ant-Man, but there's your 5 main Avengers that you can get at least 5-6 years out of. It's just scary how far they're planned ahead. Like, it's great planning. Like, it's always good to plan ahead, but to prep for 20 years' time, like, what's your villain going to be? Have you decided? I mean, are they going to buy X-Men in this 20 years and add another 10 films to the lists? It's scary, but it's kind of also, you know, I think it just helps the talk of Infinity War, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. And we'll go and see them all anyway, won't we? Let's be fair. We probably will.
I mean, usually until the last month, I can say I've seen almost every comic book film put on screen in at least almost the last decade or something. Like, I've been always there opening day, and this month we'll get to that one later. But this month was the ticking point. But before we get to them, we've got to keep talking about Marvel. They released a new international poster for Black Panther. It's not the kind of poster you're gonna have on your wall. It's a nice poster. It does the job, but it's just a teaser. Kind of making you remember. We spoke about this yesterday. You kind of forget Black Panther's coming out in February because everyone's talking about Infinity War. Probably the first time they'll do a new Infinity War trailer will be February as well. I guarantee you. So that's out. And because we're a bit behind the news, we do have like one other bit of news things to talk about the MCU. Jude Law, now Professor Dumbledore, former Watson, he is now joining Captain Marvel as the character Captain Marvel.
So we've got a character called Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel.
I know nothing about this world except that Krennic is the villain, and he's definitely in it. But this guy is apparently, well, you can probably guess by the name, but he is going to be the mentor to Captain Marvel. I'm
going to Google what he looks like.
He probably looks like Captain Marvel, but it's probably the same suit, but just Jude Law.
Is it the blue guy? Like,
I don't know. I really don't know. But no, we have.
Okay, I can see it. I don't think Jude Law will be wearing that costume, but I can see it.
It's just mental that, you know, you can. the ball's on Marvel. Like, you look at it now. The Captain Marvel's come out between Avengers 3 and 4. It's one of their riskiest films. It's their female film. It's going to be, everyone's forgetting this is coming out, but they're filming that soon. It's not a bad cast as well. Ben Mendelsohn is amazing in everything he does. He's playing King George next month. He's played Tarkin. He's been in Nolan's Batman. He's been in some very good films. I think the TV shows on Netflix is really highly rated, which he won an Emmy for. But Ben Mendelsohn's excellent. He's going to be the villain. I'm honestly looking more forward to seeing that. And Samuel L. Jackson's in it as well, as Nick Fury with 2 eyes.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's set in the 90s. Well, I'm assuming his scenes are set in the 90s or something.
Oh, they'll have like CGI Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, hopefully he's got his afro, and we get proper 90s Samuel Jackson as well. That'd be good fun.
It's like fresh out of Pulp Fiction.
What if Pulp Fiction is Nick Fury?
Let's be fair, it pretty much is, isn't it? Like, minus it is. He was the same guy. Best
Easter egg in cinema. On his gravestone in Captain America, it's got Ezekiel, and then the number. But anyway, so that's our MCU news done at the minute. We do have a little thing that Lizzie Kaplan, best known from Mean Girls, and I think that TV show called Masters of Sex or something. It had that Welsh guy in from Tron. I always forget his name. Michael Sheen, I think. Not related to Charlie or Charlie Sheen's dad, but the Welsh one. Lizzie Kaplan's in Gambit. I don't think anyone cares. It's just, oh yeah, Gambit's actually happening. It's that kind of question mark, and it is another X-Men film. There's a lot of them in development these days. Do you have an opinion?
With like Gambit and stuff, not really. I love the character of Gambit himself, but I mean, this film has been in like production limbo for ages. And I mean, yes, it's moving ahead now. They've announced it's moving ahead, but I've only really seen her in Mean Girls, and that's it. And he's a character that I don't know a lot about. I know about him tied to the X-Men, but a film about himself, I don't know his history, so not really much of that. Our next bit of news, though, sort of the history of comic book movies, however, is very interesting. It was cool seeing... there's a news. Hugh Jackman and Willem Dafoe basically sat down for a conversation about the history of comic book films, and they were really the ones that started it big. Obviously, you had Hugh Jackman from the X-Men, you had Willem Dafoe as a Green Goblin in our favorite Spider-Man movies. And it was kind of surreal seeing them together. It was kind of like the two big guys from the old school comic book movies, and they were talking about how the industry's changed with comic book movies. It was on Den of Geek. It's a really cool little sit-down interview with them.
It's just not scary, but they're both kind of reminiscent that, oh yeah, well, I did Spider-Man. Like, who would have thought people would want to see a film based on a comic book character? That was Willem Dafoe. Yeah, I wanted to do it, and he obviously had some good fun. Everyone knows he loved it. He came back for 2 and 3. I would take him back, and he's going to be an Aquaman, I'm afraid. But doesn't matter what he's in. One of the films, one of my worst experiences ever at cinema was the Grand Budapest Hotel. Yeah. And Willem Dafoe was in that film, and Willem Dafoe was fine. He's
somewhere Tate just got like a cold chill down his spine for a slag.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's bringing up La La Land, which is going to be funny when Dunkirk sweeps the Oscars next year.
Never forget.
No, I won't. And so like Willem Dafoe's obviously chatting about the early, and Hugh Jackman's kind of saying, I took on this role. He thought it was all over with X-Men 3, that people were going to stop watching, and obviously then he cracked out another 4 films after X-Men 3. Yeah, he did. Yeah, three Wolverines and Days of Future Past, and technically Apocalypse, the one everyone forgot about.
Yeah, I forgot about that cameo. I've only seen that movie once.
And First Class, but it was a really cool it's something different, because normally it's just the current stars talking about them, like that Kevin Feige interview. They're talking about the next 10 years. Whereas it's nice to get some of the guys back. This was what it was like 15 years ago, and it's really worth checking that out. It's just a little bit of news, but it's one of them little cool videos. And like I said, they're both great guys. Like, they're the sort of guys you'd want to go for a pint with or something.
Yeah, simpler times with standalone superhero movies.
Yes, this is Spider-Man. This is Spider-Man 1. This is Spider-Man 2. We're gonna tease as an arc in Spider-Man 3 with the Green Goblin, and then you get Spider-Man 3. Then Sony got involved. X-Men, back then you had X-Men 1, 2, 3, and then they wanted... What was the original X-Men plan? They were all going to do origin films.
Yeah, there was I remember there was talks of after Wolverine, if that had been successful, they were going to do Magneto, Jean Grey, Mystique. Like, there were pretty much every character I think they would have done at that point.
And then Matthew Vaughn did, well, why don't I just do a couple of them together, do First Class, and then Fox got involved and ruined it onwards. But that's our Marvel news done. Before we get to DC, we've got a couple of other things just to break it up from the superhero shenanigans.
Mhm.
Disney have cast their live action Mulan. I'm going to apologize in advance for the pronunciation, but Li Yifei, she is starring. As you may guess by that name, she is of Chinese descent, which is the big thing. If you look at the last couple of years, the amount of whitewashing in the sort of, I mean, what's the best example? Scarlett Johansson this year in Ghost in the Shell. You had Matt Damon starring
Oh, the Great Wall.
The Great Wall,
Yeah. Oh,
which
God.
caused a bit of controversy. And to be fair to Disney, I mean, I always thought they were going to do this anyway because they made a big deal. They've hired obviously a Chinese actress to do it. They said we screen test over 1,000, and they've also announced the director that Nikki Caro is going to be doing it. I'm not going to lie, I don't actually know what she's done before. I should have actually prepped for this a lot better. But they are now just they're really getting the casting going. And I can imagine that is it 2019 this release date?
Yeah, I think it's like late. I don't know if it's December, November. I think November 2019. I'm just having a look at her credits to see.
She's done The Zookeeper's Wife, Anne. Is that TV series? I think I've heard of Anne before.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's a TV series, and it's again. I think to be fair to Disney's credit, they always do take the risk on the younger directors.
Mm.
I know, kind of, we can leave Lucasfilm and let them be their own thing, but they've never. I mean, what Cinderella? You had Kenneth Branagh that did the job great. Beauty and the Beast. I can't remember who directed that.
Oh God, I'm gonna have a look. Yeah, no, I can't.
But you had like John Favreau did obviously Jungle Book. He's doing Lion King, but I think Disney just tend to get whoever's best for the projects. They don't. I mean, Kenneth Branagh, he's a guy of Shakespeare history. Of course, he'd do a great job doing Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a feeling that with this Mulan, I think they've hired Nikki Caro because she's obviously done the right pitch, and it's just moving ahead. And I wouldn't mind seeing. I've never seen Mulan, the animated film. I've said this to you before, haven't I? Because I think you're a big fan of it.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite Disney films. I was just having a look. Bill Condon directed Beauty and the Beast. He did Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2.
So he's done romance.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it fit the style, didn't it? And like the whole winter image and everything. But yeah, no, Mulan is unquestionably, undoubtedly one of my favorite Disney films. But again, I always have this because I have that such a big attachment to him, even with like Lion King coming out and all the other ones they've got coming out. I can't distance myself from the animated one, and I always think if it's a good film, why remake it? However, though, Mulan, it being set in like a wartime, the story is this, or at least the Disney movie is this Chinese girl whose dad is called to war because the Huns are about to attack. He's kind of frail and old, and she knows that he probably won't survive. So she dons his armor. She impersonates herself as a male soldier, and gets in the army and essentially saves China. So that in live action, like if they transfer what they did with some of the battle scenes in that animated film, it could look great. And I don't know the actress. I'm just having a look at her credits now. I think I've heard of some of the films that she's been in. Like I've heard of a martial art film called The Assassins. Like I've seen that available, but I've never seen her in anything.
She was in Ip Man 3. I think it's her first.
Well, this will be a big breakout.
Yeah,
and at least in a Western film. I'm just having, on Wikipedia. It says that she's widely known as fairy sister in the entertainment industry for a sweet and delicate image. So it's just going to be going along with Disney's sort of aesthetic, with the whole princess thing. Yeah. I'm going to wait for a trailer to come out, but I am glad that they've cast someone who is Chinese, and I think they should do that for the entire rest of the cast as well. I know with like Mushu in the original movie, they had the voice of Eddie Murphy, so you can go crazy with that and get who you want for that. But I know there were rumors for the male lead of the film, they were going to go with someone who was Caucasian, and I don't know if that was legit, if that was just a rumor mill, but everyone like flipped their shit on the internet, so I hope they've listened to that and they do cast like an entire Chinese cast.
I think they're smart. I think the casting on these live action films they've done.
Yeah.
I mean, Jungle Book.
That's
It was
a crossover I want to see.
Well, technically, Timon and Pumbaa were in Jungle Book. But I think they've nailed all the casting on these films so far, and I think they're doing well with it. They're on a good run, so they want to keep it going. Is that the next? That is the next one we're getting, isn't it? No. I think Lion King's out a couple of months before Mulan does.
Lion King's coming out. I know they're doing a Winnie the Pooh one as well, with Ewan McGregor and
Hello there.
Someone else. I think it's called.
If Ewan McGregor doesn't come in with Hello There, then it's just been binned.
But like with the other ones, like Lion King, yes, I can see them doing that in live action. Mulan, I can, but like Winnie the Pooh one, I know this isn't news, but just as an aside, like, are they going to make all the animals look super realistic?
Well, I mean, I've never seen it, but isn't there a dragon that's like one of her friends?
Oh, in Mulan, yeah, Mushu is voiced by Eddie Murphy. He's this little red dragon. Yeah,
That I can't wait to see.
yeah.
Is it going to be like?
No,
no, I was going to say it's not going to be like Smaug. Maybe like how the dragons were in Game of Thrones in like series like 3 or something.
Yeah, that's more like even
like
one, just like the little baby one. That's kind of how big he is in the original. But who knows? They could go. Maybe they will do a Smaug. Maybe he'll turn into a big dragon by the end of the movie, and it won't be Mulan who saves the day. It'll be
Benedict Cumberbatch motion capturing and being a dragon. Because why on earth wouldn't you want to see that? Speaking of, well, I can't really link it together, but we were talking about Disney films. Who did the first Disney live action? Kenneth Branagh. What film did he just do? Murder on the Orient Express. As you told me, because I didn't know this, I just thought it was just some reference, like, oh yeah, we're going to do another crime story. They're moving forward with the adaptation of Death on the Nile, another Hercule Poirot, wherever you pronounce it. Poirot, that's the one.
There you go.
They're moving forward with the sequel, which I think really didn't I, but I had a really good time watching Orient Express because I've never read the book. It was infuriating when you get to the end, but I loved the film, how it was done. So I'm down for another film, and I assume that this means they'll bring Kenneth Branagh back to direct and star in it, or at least star in it at minimum. But I'm down with that.
I hope he directs because I really liked his take on it and what he brought to it. I actually saw Murder on the Orient Express twice. I liked it that much. It's probably one of the most enjoyable, surprising films as well this year that I've seen because I saw the trailers and I wasn't expecting much. We talked about, well, I think I was on with Tom on that one, wasn't I? But you saw it after me. We do have a review on the channel, but we both really liked it. And even as I was watching it, I got towards like about halfway, 3/4 of the way through, and I was thinking that I could see them turning this into a trilogy or a series of however many films they wanted to do, because I really liked Branagh's take on the character and his direction. And I mean, when it got to that bit, spoiler alert, at the end where they tease it for Death on the Nile, everyone in the crowd kind of laughed at the same time who were clued up on it and everything like that. And I could absolutely see that being a great movie as well. Bring the same kind of visual style to it and the music as well. Just keep making
the cast.
And definitely in the cast. That'll be a key part of it. But Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile, I know there's been like countless other Hercule Poirot novels by Agatha Christie, but they're really the two big stories. There might be another one that I can't remember, but those are the two big ones, so it makes sense for them to do that. I think that'll be a few years off yet, though, won't it? Probably be like 2020 maybe. Or
I was going to say, I can imagine it around that time. I mean, it'll be getting what they did last time. They announced all of the cast together, and I'd imagine them, once they start getting people on board, I think now, a lot of people wanted to work on Orient Express. I think when you look at the cast that were in it, you think, I can see why they wanted to do this and that. Now you'll probably have even more actors they couldn't do on the last one that will come in. I mean, I haven't read the book, so I don't know what you need, but I'd imagine it's going to be similar whodunit film. So,
they're all pretty much the same story, just sort of different cast.
Yeah, it's like the old sort of Murder She Wrote TV shows they used to get in England and stuff. Best to talk about Angela Lansbury after this week though, but we can move on. James Cameron has been talking about Avatar 2, 3, and maybe not 4 and 5.
It's like it goes away in the news for a bit, and then every week it just keeps cropping back in, doesn't it?
He has to bring it up. He wants everyone to. He's single-handedly marketing this film himself. Please, guys, Star Wars is. Don't forget, Avatar 2 was originally meant to come out in 2 weeks, and they've only just started filming. It was the day where Lucasfilm said we're moving Episode 8 to December, and it was Avatar the next day, moved it 2 years in the future.
And then Cameron essentially said, well, fuck you, Star Wars, I'm going to make my own saga that's going to be better than yours.
And then they made Episode 9 come out in that December too. So they were just waiting for another change of release date. No, they already did change it, didn't they? They pushed it to January, didn't they?
God knows when. I can't even remember when these fucking movies come out. He was meant to be shooting them back to back. Now he's doing 5 of them. But according to this news, he might not even be reaching that amount. All
he said is, if Avatar 2 and 3 don't make enough money, there's not going to be a 4 and 5.
Let's just hope that Avatar 2 and 3 don't make much money then.
To me, all this means that 2 and 3 are getting shot back to back. Not the original 2, 3, 4, and 5 are getting shot to back. He's obviously got a 2-pitch deal. To be fair, I mean, if you're a studio, I mean, that first film made $2.8 billion. That should be you only need $1 billion to probably fund the next 4 films. So I don't know, but I think he's gonna at least he's prepping himself for the worst. Maybe he's trying to get out now, but oh no, maybe this isn't going to be as good as I thought in my head. Maybe, you know, human beings don't want to be taken to Pandora.
It's like the Lucas thing. I may have gone too far in a few places. I think that's
yeah, and I think I mean, imagine if George. I mean, we know he had an insane plan. That's why he, after Star Wars came out, he then changed it to episodes 4, 5, and 6. Well, no, he did it after as soon as episode 4 came out. But at least he didn't outright come out and say, "This is the first one. I'm going to do all 4 in a row." At least he never had that. He wanted to wait, and the prequels are what they are. But he waited for the technology to get right for what he wanted to do, and I've got all the time in the world for that. That's a guy that wanted to do it and knew he would. He was just waiting for the opportune moment, which he did do. It's just unfortunately he had Rick McCallum as producer. And then we have to talk about some we can't really go into details again. This is a fundamental thing recently, but because it involves Pixar, we kind of have to talk about it because I guess it's quite high up. John Lasseter has taken a 6-month leave of absence from Pixar. What basically happened is that I think Hollywood Reporter, one of the news agencies, they were about to drop a massive sort of leaked sort of harassment thing, everything that's been happening recently. They had it all prepped up to release John Lasseter's, and the day before it was going to come out, he released his own statement saying he's taken a 6-month leave of absence based off what he's done. He wants to apologize. You know, the usual kind of apologetic thing. But what it did do is there was rumors that came from this that Rashida Jones, who was writing Toy Story 4, who's a very, very funny actress and writer, there was rumors that she left because she got harassed and stuff. I've got to kind of say this. She didn't. She actually came out and said, "I didn't leave because of that. I left because Pixar as a culture are wrong," basically hinting that it's all men. There's no opportunities for women, people of other races, stuff like that, which we're not going to really talk about. But at least she came out and disverified that.
Play to her. Yeah.
But if you want to have a look, there's some. It's going to maybe ruin some of your childhood when you read some of this John Lasseter stuff. The sort of thing, like I said, we can't really talk about. So we're going to move on to speak about DC Comics instead. That's a really awkward transition. I guess first up, we should say we had a lot of stuff prepped for last week. Originally, we had a picture of Superman. No need to cry, DC fans. It's Iron Man now to be our thumbnail. I guess should we start with the main? The main one is that yesterday a lot of news emerged regarding the production of Justice League. There is an insane article. I forgot which website it was that we were. It's like Han Solo, Rogue One. Everyone's waiting for the behind-the-scenes story to come out, and we finally got it now. And summed up, I guess we could say that Warner Bros. Basically, as quick as we can get through this, Warner Bros. Were fine with Zack Snyder doing everything. He was tied in well with Nolan, Man of Steel. They just let them do what they wanted to do. They give them that creative freedom. And then a couple of questions were raised after he broke Zod's neck. And then Batman v Superman happened. And after that, basically, I think Warner Bros. Were getting ready to fire him, where they chose not to fire him because they were, quotes, too deep into production on Justice League. So instead, they waited and they wanted to usher him out. And there was a lot of discussions based on him making it lighter and stuff like that. Then, of course, the tragedy happened with his family at home, which prompted him to then leave a couple of months later. Now, what the issues come from? Well, not the issues not come from that. What happened is that, is it Tashimura? I don't know how to pronounce him. One of the heads of DC / Warner Bros. Film. They were given the choice: bring in Joss Whedon, postpone that release date, give him more time to do reshoots or further rewrites, whatnot, or you just go with Snyder's cut. They didn't want to delay the film because they would have lost their annual bonuses, and they're expecting to get sacked, so they wanted to take their bonus before they got sacked, which is absolutely unreal. And instead of, they were originally starting, do we want a Whedon film? Do we want a Snyder? They're calling it the Frankenstein, aren't they? Yeah. That's what a lot of people are referring to it now. And that's kind of ended up with DC as it is now, in this state of limbo. I really recommend reading the article because I'm only reading lines out of the entire sort of transcripts.
Yeah, the article was on the Wrap, thewrap.com, and the article was called How Justice League Became a Frankenstein Exclusive.
It's a pretty good read.
It's pretty much stuff that we already knew, like in hindsight, but it's just good to get it all laid out there and read through it because it is quite fascinating. I mean, it goes into it that Although Snyder was still tied to Justice League pretty much alongside or right after BVS came out. When the critical reception came out for BVS, already like behind the scenes, they wanted to push Snyder out, didn't they? Like there was someone there. I think someone vouched for him. One of the CEOs wanted to.
I know that Nolan. It wasn't his article, but it's one fact. I think Nolan defended him to the high ups at Warner Bros, didn't he? Because I think they've got a personal relationship. Obviously, they worked on Man of Steel together as well, which is fair play of him. And I think, I mean, if you go back, draw our memories back a year ago, there was no longer Justice League wasn't going to be a 2-part film anymore. Justice League would now be one singular film with a sequel booked in on another date.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I mean, I best I can say I haven't seen Justice League, and I think to me that says everything I need to know about it. I will happily go to the cinema and watch terrible comic films. I have done a lot of the time, and take create experience into value. I'd take my own. This is.
You went to see Fan Four Stick, didn't you? So...
I saw Fan Four Stick because I was intrigued. There is nothing. I mean, Fan Four Stick, we knew that had behind the scenes drama. I know Justice League did, but there's nothing that made me want to watch Justice League. There's nothing that's making me want to. I will see it eventually, but I'm not going out of my way. I'm not going to walk into town and go to that cinema to watch it. I'm literally going to have to be dropped off at a cinema somewhere for me to go and see it. And then I'm even going to contemplate getting my 2 hours back because there's something about it which is just off. And like you said, in hindsight, we knew most of this stuff. I'm not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder, but like I've said many times, I love Man of Steel. Batman vs Superman, I don't mind. I'm not keen on it, but I don't mind it. I don't mind Watchmen. I like 300. So I was down to watch the films. What I don't like is Josh Whedon coming in. I mean, I guess it's his job as a director to do it, but basically one of the reasons I don't want to see it is because I want to see a Zack Snyder film or I want to see a Joss Whedon film. I don't want this shit show that Warner Bros have trucked out because they're to blame. Some people blame Snyder, that's fine. Some people blame Whedon, that's fine. But deep down, the underlying problem is the Warner Bros execs. The guys that greenlit this film because they were desperate to do the Avengers. They didn't realize that you need years to plan this. Man of Steel was done basically in retaliation to the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight trilogy is finished. This is blatantly how it's going to go. If you go back to the 2012 time, right? I remember seeing this amazing article around that time, and for the days, I wish I saved it because it's still relevant today. Someone predicted the future of Warner Bros. As being a downfall. They said Dark Knight trilogy is finishing. The Hobbit trilogy has been made into a trilogy because they wanted money because their own franchise are finished. Harry Potter is gone. This is about 2011 time, so we knew what the end. I said they're going to put everything into these comic book films, and that's what they've done. They've instead of doing quality and building up for the future, they're like, right, we need to get this money now.
Yeah.
So we've got Man of Steel, which was a good hit. It made decent money at the box office, especially for a kind of origin slash reboot.
650, wasn't it? I think
700. Yeah, about that, which is fine. And for a 2D film in 2013 as well, if that had 3D, then you could imagine another 50, 100 more back then. And then it was, now we're doing Batman vs Superman. And you're kind of like, well, okay, we've had Nolan for the last couple of years. Nolan drops off the project basically as soon as Batman's name's put on it. Hans Zimmer, composes half the soundtrack because he doesn't want to do the Batman half. Brings in Junkie XL, who would take over, which is fine by me. And I don't even know what I'm waffling on about now, but there's just something not right that sits well with DC, and for the first time in my life, I just don't want to take the hit and go.
The problem is, like, kind of what you just said. My biggest problem with the DCEU overall is how reactionary Warner Brothers have been. As you said, Man of Steel, you could take that trailer that came out for Man of Steel. Hell, you could probably take the movie. Visually, it would match up with Nolan's Batman. Like, unquestionably, you could match, like, 2 of those scenes. They even did it with the interrogation scene with Batman across the table from Superman. Like, it looks exactly the same. BVS comes out, and it's in the same tone, like, obviously, as Man of Steel, but it seems like they were reactionary to Avengers, and they were trying to set everything up, so they just cram everything in there, and it felt muddled. I think you went on record and said, like, it felt like 5 movies or 5 stories crammed together. Suicide Squad comes out, it's shot as a serious movie, but with Guardians of the Galaxy, they want to go for a lighter tone, they tinker with it. Wonder Woman, I still go on record, I love Wonder Woman. It's probably in my top 3, maybe top 5 films of this year. Absolutely love that movie. That is probably the one where the studio didn't have as much control and just let the director direct the movie and make it as they wanted. But then, unfortunately, Justice League, as it was like sort of being made and being constructed around the same time as BVS, and they, they're just there's too many cooks in the kitchen with the studio. Even if you go back to like Spider-Man 3 and stuff, usually that's sort of the nail in the coffin for most comic book films, is if the studio gets too much involved. And we're seeing that now. But what's strange about this is, what is the future of DC going to be now? Like, no one really cares about Justice League. I know it has its fans, and I don't hate it as much as stuff like I did like Man of Steel or BVS, but I'm just completely apathetic to about like this whole cinematic universe at this point. But you've got Aquaman coming out. They've got, like, is it too late to pull the plug on Shazam and Black Adam and things like that? I don't know how far down the line they are at this point.
What saddens me most is that if someone would have said to me 10 years ago, we see a Justice League film, buzzing. 5 years ago on the Nolan hype, did you want to see a Justice League film? Yes, this is the point when I was reading DC Comics so much, New 52. I used to buy so many of it. I was really looking forward to everything. 3 years ago, would I have done it? Yes, love Man of Steel. 2 years ago, Batman v Superman, I'd still want to watch. No, that's 1 year ago. Anyway, doing that 2 years ago, I would still want to watch one. A year ago, I'm down to see Snyder's cut of Justice League now. That every time the trailers come out, I mean, I always used to make jokes about that. It's just becoming like a red filter.
Yeah.
It's just sad how, I mean, people they'll moan that, well, you should have watched it anyway. It's not the point that I haven't seen it. It's the point that this is a film I should have been there at midnight for. I was midnight Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman opening day, Suicide Squad opening day, Man of Steel opening day, Dark Knight Rises opening. You know what I mean? What I've always said is I prefer DC Comics to Marvel Comics, but I prefer Marvel films to DC films in terms of the cinematic universes. Overall, I prefer the Dark Knight trilogy than the Spider-Man trilogy. Mm-hmm. But it's just sad what this has become. And then even off all this, all the news we're going to talk about from this is all down to how DC's been handled. Because I guess we can start going into it. I guess the first one is the rumor doing the rounds is that Jake Gyllenhaal's been having a meeting, had a meeting with Matt Reeves about playing that plane.
I
love that. I love that news. Yeah. But the fact that, Ben Affleck, who was the best thing about BVS.
Yeah, I love Ben Affleck's Batman.
We know he already wants to leave. Yeah.
The thing is, I think he joined because he was so enthusiastic with this when he joined it, BVS. Like, I think he joined this kind of under false pretenses. He wanted to be like the next Nolan, right? He wanted to direct his next Batman trilogy, star in it, do the character justice. And I honestly believe if you'd have given Affleck just the reins to write it, direct everything like that, script it, it would have been great. I guarantee it would have been great. And I actually do like his portrayal of Batman, the look of the character, how he acts when he's not killing people, but like the fight sequences with him and everything like that. And it's such a shame because, if this does all come to a head, and let's be honest, there's been so many rumors with this now, he probably will leave after this now. I don't know if he's contracted to do one more or if he's can get out now pretty much, but I think he's going to get out as soon as he can, which is a shame because it's wasted potential. But yeah,
I think he'll be gone after the next. I think going with contracts, we do have to talk about Henry Cavill in a minute, but I think, if you're Ben Affleck, you sign up that, okay, I'm going to do these, but I'm going to end up writing and directing my Batman trilogy. Mm-hmm. I've just had the best film at the Oscars, Argo. I've got stuff in the pipeline. I've been basically not given a second chance. It's not that, but the Batfleck hype is there. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone's really intrigued to see what Ben Affleck wants to do with Batman. And you can see in Batman Superman how much he cares, how he's going to make that role his. And then you can just, when the first bit of news came through, they're doing a rewrite. No, before that, he's no longer directing the Batman film. He is simply writing the Batman film because it's, quote, too hard to direct and star in a Batman film. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Then his script becomes a page one rewrite by another writer. And then you think, so he's just playing Batman for someone else. Then they bring in Matt Reeves, which is fucking wonderful. Mm. But Matt Reeves wants a standalone Batman not connected to the DC universe. It would be very hard if anyone in Ben Affleck's position would genuinely want to carry on doing that. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame, but Matt Reeves, I mean, if you're a director, you've got a bit of pulling power. You just made two of the three films from the best trilogies this century. Mm-hmm. Someone questioned that. Behind the Apes, wonderful trilogy. Matt Reeves took it to another level. Mm-hmm. If anyone wants to question him, then they're deluded because he is probably the most talented director Warner Bros. Have had since Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, and even if you see him in interviews talking about the Planet of the Apes films, like he doesn't just talk about like, oh, this film's going to be bigger or whatever. He understands the characters. I mean, we've done our reviews on the Planet of the Apes movies. They are so in keeping with character. Imagine what he could do with the character of Batman and Bruce Wayne, like how in depth he could go into that psyche. With Jake Gyllenhaal being rumored to be playing Batman, I think that's great casting. I love Gyllenhaal. I can see him playing that haunted quality to Bruce Wayne, sort of like putting on a false guise. Like if you watch Nightcrawler or anything like that, like he could absolutely do that. But I've always really wanted Gyllenhaal as like the next Joker. Like I could see him playing like I'd want, and I guess that's good casting because I mean, if you look at the character of Batman and the Joker, they are so like they're both two different sides of the same coin, really, aren't they? So to see that kind of parallel between the two. But honestly, if Gyllenhaal played either of those characters, say if he did get the gig as the Joker, I could see him being like the next one after like Heath Ledger, like people would compare him to. Ignore that one in the middle that came out with Suicide Squad.
Also, given that he's with Heath Ledger in Brokeback Mountain, there's just something that would never be unseen.
Yes,
and obviously,
God, I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
obviously his sister was killed by the Joker, Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
I couldn't see him as Batman. If someone said to me a couple of years ago, Jake Gyllenhaal, Batman, I'd have just laughed.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like Cillian Murphy. Like he was an excellent Scarecrow, and he was one of the final contenders to be Batman. And I believe that Jake Gyllenhaal did audition to be Batman for the Nolan films. Obviously,
did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, now given what seeing some of what he's done recently and how I want to say how different his career's gone, but because he's so quietly gone about his career, he's kept away from the blockbusters. He's really selected those projects. I think he can do anything, and I would be really down to see him as Batman. And I mean, Matt Reeves, he's got the world at his hand. He can cast a Batman. He can do whatever. He's getting a standalone Batman trilogy. That is good for DC.
Is it confirmed that he's actually getting it, or
he's? You never know with DC, but it's what you said that everything of DC's been a reaction. You always say to me offline, whenever we chat normally, everything DC does reverts back to going to Batman for a Batman film, and that nothing epitomizes more than being 4 films into a cinematic universe, or 5 films into a cinematic universe to go back to a hopefully standalone Batman. I'm sure they'll use Flashpoint or some Earth 23 thing to eventually merge them all in together and stuff like that. But
with the next bit of news as well, like Henry Cavill's contracted to do one more Superman film. Again,
he seems more upbeat about it than the others.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I can say about Justice League is, although it's like a complete clusterfuck and like a Frankenstein's monster, as that article said, it's a step in the right direction to the Superman I want to see. Like he's more quippy, more sort of like Boy Scouty, more saving people, brighter, more cheerful, smart, things like that. And I love Cavill. Like Cavill is a great casting for Superman. Like given the right material, I know he could do it, and I just don't think he's been given that material yet. Could they turn this cinematic universe around? Could you do like your standalone Batman trilogy with Gyllenhaal and have that tie-in eventually, or maybe just have it be that? Could you do like a great Superman film on its own? I know you like Man of Steel, but it was very split down the middle in terms of reviews. Get a great Superman film out of it. You've got Aquaman, make that great. You've had Wonder Woman. Is it possible to turn it round and just like focus on doing these standalone setup movies in between and build up to something bigger later down the line? And just chalk these first few movies up to like those really bad ones. I don't even know if it's possible. It's a really weird situation. I've never known a film franchise like this before where it's been in this situation.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, one day there'll be a documentary on this, and it'll be fascinating. But with Henry, I mean, I like him. I haven't, obviously, I said many times I haven't seen the film yet, but I've seen enough of the pictures of his moustache's face. One thing I will say, there is some brilliant photoshops going around on Facebook and Twitter where they've been CGIing the mustaches out of Infinity War characters. So there's a really good one of Captain America where they've just took his mustache off, and the same with Peter Quill, Chris Pratt. It's worth seeking them up because it's truly worth it. But I mean, like I said, I did enjoy Man of Steel, and I do really like Henry Cavill, and I'd like the darker and more depressing tone. Maybe because I've never been a fan of Superman. I guess that's one thing I should always say. I'm intrigued to see if he can do the bright. I mean, I know that they go for the John Williams theme in Justice League, but I want to see what he wants to do with it, because he spoke a lot. He says, he wants this light-hearted Superman. He wants, whether he's been told to say that, but I am down to see his film, and I think, to be fair, he's most likely to sign on. To be fair,
Yeah.
I mean, he's still. I mean, let's be honest, Mission Impossible is probably going to be better than Justice League anyway. So, mustache-wise, he made the right choice, but it is what it is. And I guess finally, to finish off DC, we can get to every DC fan's favourite director, Joss Whedon. A rumor came out last week that they were going to remove him from Batgirl projects, given everything. Like I said, reactionary. They were going to get rid of Whedon off DC slate. It's now come out that he is also still writing and directing it. Multiple rumors everywhere, but I can't remember if he was brought onto Justice League before the Batgirl announcement or after. But I could still see this not happening at all, especially if
before, because he was working on reshoots before, and they must have had faith in him there in his vision, and then they gave him Batgirl, didn't they?
Maybe Danny Elfman will do the Batman theme for that film as well, because you're a scumbag if you don't use it, apparently.
We've spoken about this. It's a mess. That's all I have to say on it. That's all I have to say on the entire.
Should we leave comic films alone for a week?
Let's get on to Star Wars.
Let's get on to Star Wars. By far,
it's the road to the Last Jedi.
Yes, let's get excited now. It's been so depressing. We started off so nice with Avengers. Now it's got all depressing and deep.
That's what DC does.
Let's commence the hype train. Daisy Ridley talks about her future of Star Wars. And this is a non-article, which has aggravated me very much. And basically, someone asked her, "Are you going to play Rey again after Episode 9?" And she basically just said, "I'm really, really excited to do the third thing and round it out, because ultimately that's why I signed on to 3 films. In my head, it's 3 films. I think it will feel like the right time to round it out." So that's that paragraph basically saying I'm not going to immediately play Rey again. And then in the same interview, she basically hinted that maybe in 30 years' time she could play Rey. Basically, this is nothing new to me. Like, you just know in 20 years they're going to reunite the trilogy. This is Disney. They own it. She did kind of make a joke, like, for all we know, in 30 years' time, it could be the end of the world, given modern politics. We could all be in jail cells together. She's probably trying to dance away from answering any spoilery questions, but it's common sense, but it's just quite funny. Like, I mean, her interviews are great with her. She always has a good laugh with people, but I think it's stupid to ask someone on the eve of their second film, are you going to play her again after a couple more?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Disney would plan that far ahead, in all honesty, but you're right there when you talked about spoilers. We keep forgetting how closely guarded Star Wars is, even in like an innocent question like this. I guess if the pay's good, right? Of course she's going to come back if they do want to do more. But I mean, we've already discussed their slate. I mean, they're doing Episode 9, and then we've got Rian Johnson's new trilogy, which is probably going to be a prequel to Phantom Menace and like the Old Republic and stuff like that. At least we think so. So regardless of what it's going to be like a 10-year gap, like at least a 5 to 10-year gap, right, in between that and if they do choose to go back to Rey. But we don't know how Episode 9 is going to end. I don't think they're going to kill off Rey. I really don't.
Of course they won't. No,
it's not going to be like the structure. They're going to want to keep bringing her back. She's everyone's favorite character now. Like, so
we're shipping Kylo Ray. That's where the creepy Tumblr fan fiction is going to go after the next couple of weeks. We don't even know what's going to happen. She might get decapitated in the next film. She's obviously not going to, but I just think if you're a journalist you're sitting down for a junket to talk about Star Wars, why did you ask her? Are you going to come back like for some more films?
They always do, though.
They always do. And it's like they want that first head, like, we're the first ones that asked this. And it's like, well, no, she's probably been asked it off and on for years. Like, but yeah, that's a non-story. But I really like her as Rey. I think she's good for the sort of Star Wars fandom that she seems very passionate about it, not just because she's the lead, but she's always lending herself to the video games. She's been on Battlefront in the Lego games. She's very in with the Star Wars fan base, while at the same time doing a lot of, we've seen her on Murder on the Orient Express. She's, I think, in Ophelia, which is some kind of Shakespeare spin-off film coming out next year. I don't know, but she's using she's not just going to be in Star Wars and jump off the career bandwagon. Then she's obviously staying doing acting, which is great, because I think the main thing is seeing these guys in Star Wars is great, but they're going to be able to attract people to other films in the future. Yeah. Like John Boyega, yes, he's got Pacific Rim, but he's in stage plays, set up a production company. He's being very smart about his future, and it's just, I don't know, I just like seeing them. But I guess we could get to the real meat of the Star Wars news.
Yes.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller have given their first interview about Han Solo. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so I mean, this has just been a whole shambles again, hasn't it? Really, and Disney were very. I'd say they were smart though. They did skirt around the whole thing. Obviously, when Phil Lord and Chris Miller were fired from the Han Solo spin-off, so they spoke about it a little bit, and they said the experience of shooting the movie was wonderful. We had the most incredible cast and crew and collaborators. I think in terms of us leaving the project, I think everyone went in with really good intentions, and our approach to making the movie was different than theirs. Lord said that was a that was a really big gap into bridge, and it proved to be too big. Some people break up. It's really sad. It's really disappointing, but it happens, and we learned a lot from our collaborators, and we're better filmmakers for it. We're really proud of the work we did on the movie, and we wish everyone the best. It's really sad to hear news like this because I would have loved to have seen their take on it. And I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of what happened, really. I mean, there's been rumors, there was an article and stuff like that, but Disney, I won't say they sweep things under the rug, but they handle it accordingly. You know what I mean? You never really get to in depth, even with like Gareth Edwards on Rogue One. It's just a shame. And I mean, we haven't really heard much news coming out of the Han Solo spin-off. We keep talking about that every single time. We still haven't got anything. Maybe we'll get a trailer when Last Jedi comes out. But I like that they've spoken about it because I think it would have looked really suspect if they didn't even address it in the slightest. But they handled it professionally, which is fair play to them. But it's as they said, it's just a shame it didn't work out. And they don't seem bitter about it. They might be bitter about it and they're just putting on a front. I guess you would have a bit of anger there if you've worked on this project for ages and got like 98% complete, was it, or something like that?
Yeah. Over 80%. Well, the rumors are they reshot the film, basically. Yeah. So
it's probably why we haven't heard anything at this point. They're probably like desperately trying to crank it out.
It's a shame because I would have loved their cut and they seemed so sort of energetic and stuff. But I think deep down, I think when they were hired on, I think Disney were. It's hard to describe. I think when they're so set in their way, you've got two young guys who have a track record of being, I don't say immature, that's the wrong thing, but they don't shoot films like the traditional way of doing films.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. A lot of improv stuff like this. And obviously there were stories about what happened on set with this, but deep down, I just think that Disney wanted to give them that risk, but it just didn't work out. And it's a shame this happens because this does happen with films, but it's when it happens to a $200 million blockbuster that's a Star Wars film that's about Han Solo that the entire world is going to be bearing down upon you. But I think the statement they've made is classy. Like, obviously, it took them a few months, not going to come out straight away. And, you know, it's going to come out in a few months. I'm sure they will watch it. It will be weird of an experience. We're obviously not going to get them on the credits. Maybe a story credit or something. But
yeah, like producer or something, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a nice way of them coming out and saying stuff, but I mean, at least they've come out and said things about, well, you know, we're better filmmakers. That's encouraging in the sense that these guys are going to get other jobs. You know, they did the Lego movie, they did the Jump Street films. They are two talented sort of right directors. They're going to go on stuff. It's not a Josh Trank where, you know, has anyone heard of him since he got sacked from Star Wars?
No, I haven't. Is he like been taken care of by Disney's people? I have no idea. The guy just had like a full-on mental breakdown, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was all from, you know, Fantastic Four. And I think Disney, I mean, we knew rumors, like one of the reasons they got rid of Trevorrow was because they just wanted to get out from the, they didn't want a repeat of this. And I really hope that Disney used this as a learning curve for future films. I mean, we got JJ back, we're getting a Rian Johnson trilogy. I think they will now go for not the more experienced guys, but the guys they know are going to safe tune it. Rian Johnson he done Breaking Bad, he handled a big TV series, he'd done Looper, you know, an original sci-fi film. They gave him the keys and he did a great job. JJ was, I know you've got very different thoughts on episode 7, yet you bought a poster for it.
Just to get signatures, I might add. That's the only reason I got that poster.
JJ was the guy to reboot the franchise with. Like, that was safe. There's safe, and then there's the JJ rebooting a franchise safe. It did the job, but now he's going to hopefully go on to something a lot better with 9. You know, return to the trilogy he helped shape, and you know, there's a lot of potential. But I see Disney now not playing it safe. I think they'll go for the more established, like bringing Ron Howard on last minute. You know that Ron Howard's he's got the maturity to crank out a good film, and that he can salvage it. Look at social media. He's got people more comfortable to the release now than they were 6 months ago. Just his set pictures, everything like that. He's done a very good job for them. But I think in the future, I mean, we don't know we know Ryan Johnson's getting 3 films. Then we know we're getting TV and spin-offs. It'll be very interesting to see who they really go for, because it's all gone quiet on the Obi-Wan Kenobi front for that 2020 film. But the guy they had in talks directed, the guy that did Billy Elliot, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
It's all gone quiet, but that's not the typical guy who would do a Star Wars film. But he's experienced, which is probably what they're after now.
Mm-hmm. And I think they will go to that. The one thing that I'm concerned about that, though, like the flip side to that is they won't be taking as many chances with these films. Like a Star Wars film directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, even if it wasn't good, I wanted to see that just as an experiment, what that would have looked like. If they do go too far to like the safe formula movies, that down the line, like 10 years down the line, is that going to become like another Marvel thing where we were even talking about they're sort of like come off an assembly line, really? Like it's the same movie. I do want to see them still take chances, but I can understand them not going like completely, off tracks and just like casting some, new upstart directors and just putting all their eggs in one basket with that. Because you'll have a situation like this that's happened with Han Solo.
So I've seen.
I was just going to move on. Should I move on to the next bit?
Go for it.
So The Last Jedi has been confirmed to be the longest Star Wars film in terms of its running time. I think it's clocking in at about 2.5 hours. And it's also predicting that it will open with 200 million plus in the US. And it has been given the very unsurprising rating of 12A in the UK or PG-13 in the US and other territories. I don't know if I was shocked about the running time, because I guessed like it would come in. I think Revenge of the Sith was around 2:16, wasn't it? 2 hours 16 minutes, somewhere like that. 2 hours 10, something like that.
I think 2:30 is about right for the middle chapter, the darker film, and it seems about right. And I mean, yes, Justice League was 2 hours. Yes, Dunkirk was 1:47, but Blade Runner was about 2:40. Dark Knight Rises was 2:45. A lot of the big blockbusters these days tend to be a bit longer, so. About 2:30. I mean, it's 2.5 hours of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Like, what's to complain about?
Yeah, and with a running time like that, you just know there's going to be so much in this movie.
Yes,
they've essentially got like a half hour to play with, haven't they? Like, how long was Force Awakens? I can't remember.
2:10. I think that and all the Star Wars films. I think, have they all been over 2 hours, but between about 2 and 2:15ish, haven't they? So it's just that extra 15 that, fair play.
Extra porgs, 15 minutes of porgs.
Porgomania. What's he going to do? Oh, we can't even quote Hawk because he's a disgusting piece of work as well. God. But basically, the more important things, like my box office figures. There's a couple of weeks ago this came out that they're tracking its open of 200 mil plus. The record is Force Awakens with a 248 mil weekend. Then I think it's Jurassic World with 218. Then Avengers 1 with 210. I see this getting like 220 comfortably. I know it's really hard to predict box office figures this early. There's been no reviews yet, stuff like this, but I mean, it's a Star Wars film. It's definitely going to hit 200. It's a non-article saying it, but I love the opening weekend stuff. My favorite thing about Force Awakens was just going on Wikipedia every few hours. It was like, it's just broken this record, it's broken that record. And I think in my lifetime, I've remembered Harry Potter did a lot of them. Obviously, Avatar, Harry Potter Part 2. Then Avengers came and took it. I love it when that film comes through, and I've got a feeling that next year, Infinity War is going to be giving Force Awakens a bit of a challenge.
Oh, the midnight for that film. You're going to have to book tickets like months in advance. Months and months.
I think UK get it early again, which is wonderful.
Yes.
Disney like giving us we kind of picked our films early, but we can have all the other ones. But no, that's Last Jedi. In 2 weeks' time, we'd have all seen it. I would have just finished my second viewing, actually, and it wouldn't even be out in America yet, which is even better. Sorry, American subscribers. It's just every time you delay a Pixar film by 3 months over here, it's just so aggravating that it's already out on Blu-ray and we haven't even had it at the cinema yet.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about Coco to me in like the comments on reactions and stuff like that, and I'm like, I will get to a review, but it won't be until January 18th or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm not going to complain because we get Marvel movies a little bit earlier and we get Star Wars like a day earlier as well. So
yeah, and now we're on our last bit of news. These are the really sort of easy, fun things. Someone called Billy Ray, who I've never heard of, sounds like some kind of singer, is rewriting the Terminator 6 screenplay.
When I saw that, I was like, "Oh God, Billy Ray Cyrus is writing a script for
That's
Terminator 6." Yeah,
right. I knew it sounded like sort of singer or something.
I checked his credits, not Billy Ray Cyrus. I checked Billy Ray's credits. He's done scripts for The Hunger Games, Captain Phillips, And Volcano from 1997, the natural
I
disaster
remember that.
movie with Tommy Lee Jones. Remember that?
I remember seeing that on telly in Spain once. Really bizarre, like we're on holiday. And there's a guy at the end, he jumps into the lava, but
Yeah.
saves someone by throwing it, and he literally just melts through
Is
it.
that the bit in the subway car, or is that from Dante?
It's
I always get mixed up
it's
with Volcano
something.
and
I
Dante's.
think it's something like near a train. So I think it's the subway. I just remember it so bizarrely, and I can never unsee just a man jumping. It's the
It's in
most
slow
simple
motion, isn't it?
after,
Like jumps
and it
through
just
the air.
goes straight through, and the hands at the end just chuck someone out.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
I'm gonna have to give that movie another watch at some point. Love that movie. But yeah,
I guess
Terminator 6.
Halloween has been well. They're filming the Halloween sequel. They've delayed that 3 months. However, they aren't changing the release date of it.
And this is the sequel to the original, right? Now, there already was a sequel to the original called Halloween 2. This one, I think, is bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back into it, even though she already came back in one of the later sequels and was killed, I believe, in one of those sequels. So this is clearly a reboot, but I'm not hyped for this movie at all. Doesn't need to be made.
No, I don't care. But horror films have a quick post-production, so they're not changing their release date. Another bit of minor news. I swear it's like 3 weeks in a row. After last week, or the last episode, we said, oh yeah, there's a bidding war for the Tarantino film rights. Sony won it, which was fair play, move on. Now we can finish on a real high, a real comedy high. Luc Besson says Valerian 2 is still possible. I'm
gonna check how much it actually made.
And
I was
while
all
you
set
check,
to go and see that movie.
While you check how much it made, the best thing about this is that in the interview he says, when you look at my story for the second film, it would be a lot cheaper than the first film. But then in the same paragraph he says, but the third film would be the same budget as the first film.
He's getting a bit too far down the line now.
I thought that was just a good laugh, wasn't it?
Yeah, Wikipedia's got it. It's weird. It's got like a whole bunch of digits going on. I think it would be around 177 million, between that and 180 million. There's a bunch of figures. There's like 197 million gross, $209 million, and then there's 177 to 180. It made 225, so it probably made a little bit. But then again, advertisement was everywhere for that movie, wasn't it? Everywhere.
And it was an independent film. It wasn't bankrolled by a major studio, so that company's probably died now as well. But that's all about news. Now we have to talk about box office, which is, I think this has been a long episode today. That's Avengers and DC for real. Week one, we actually have to talk about Justice League debuted with 93.8 million. The lowest opening for a DCEU film. The lowest DC film since Watchmen in 2009. It did very well internationally in its opening weekend of 185 mil. However, due to its budget of 300 million and being the second most expensive film ever made, joint with Dead Man's Chest, it needs between 600 and 700 mil to break even.
What's it on now? I'm gonna have a look.
It's on 487 million at the minute because it's also in our week 2 box office.
And I did see an article somewhere that it could stand to lose Warner Brothers 100 million. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all. But I remember saying this, I think, to you guys in the chat group, that it's mental that this has made less money this opening weekend than Guardians of the Galaxy, a film about a talking tree, a raccoon, and aliens made more money across 3 days than Batman, Wonder Woman, and
Superman.
Yeah. Yes, that is. It's like I said, it's sad, but it's just like no one wanted to. I didn't know anyone that really went. I don't know a single person that's not into sort of DC madly that went to watch this film.
Honestly, if I didn't have to go and see that movie for a review, like, because I've seen Man of Steel and that, I probably wouldn't have gone to have seen it. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment, can I? But doesn't that say everything? People haven't gone. I think this has been a film, one of the wake-up calls where people have just had enough. And I think this is the shining example. And like I said, the Infinity War, everyone's going to go see Infinity War. And that box office weekend is going to break figures. But the fact that the Justice League film is like, I mean, it's not a flop. It's 90 mil, but to me, that is. The Dark Knight Rises opening weekend was 160 million. And that was affected by obviously what happened in Aurora. You know, that's 5 years ago. That's a different DC franchise in itself. It's a different trilogy.
When you look at, for example, like Amazing Spider-Man 2, like that made a lot of money,
that had a 90 mil opening weekend. That's insane, and that was terrible. Like Captain America went to 90 mil, and that the Captain America wasn't popular back then. He was the boring Avenger until that film. It's insane that this film has made 93 mil. I mean, Wonder Woman only made 100 mil. That was some big bravado. That was the most successful thing ever. Blah blah blah. That was fine.
That was word of mouth, though, wasn't it? I think
yeah,
that really shocked a lot of people.
But then a film with no word of mouth, Justice League, it only makes 7 mil less than that film with word of mouth. So really, was it word of mouth? Well, actually, yeah, it was. We know it was.
Yeah.
But it's
to me, it just struck me as a film that was dead on arrival.
Yeah, I think this was. And the thing is, it had its own release date. Thor came out 2 weeks before.
Mm-hmm.
No competition. Does have any competition until December? Not Diana Rises, Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I said, DC RIP.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck, but good luck for the director that wants to do the next Justice League film.
Yeah, it'd be like the next person that takes on Fantastic Four after 2 failed.
That'll be MCU. That'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess we can say Wonder, not Wonder Woman, the Wonder, the film of I always forget the name, Jacob Tremblay, the drama film. I think slowly getting to Oscar season. They opened up quite strong with 27.5 mil. It's got very good reviews. I think it's going to pitch towards Oscar season. It does look very good, to be fair. That opened 27.5 mil, great opening. Then Thor 3 was at number 3 with 21.6 mil. This is obviously not last weekend, but the one before, because we missed an episode for those who's watching now. As of today, it's now crossed 800 million worldwide. It's going to overtake Wonder Woman this weekend. It's going to keep going. Thor's powering on. And then we look at last weekend's box office. It was so in America, it was Thanksgiving weekend, isn't it? So they get a 5-day weekend. So across the 5-day weekend, Coco debuted at number 1 with 71 mil, which is doing, I think it's the highest.
Been getting great reviews so far.
Yeah, and to be fair, like I'll hold my tongue on that. I wasn't looking interested in it or anything, but given the sort of reception, especially in Mexico, given this is a very culture-specific film, I think it's become the highest-grossing film ever in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to this now. And obviously, at the Michael Giacchino concert, he did play a street from Coco, and it sounded fine. So when this comes out in January, after the entire world's watched it, we'll be able to see it in England. Mm-hmm. Justice League dropped to number 2 across its 5 days. It got 56.9 mil. Mm-hmm. It's not a nice drop. It's a sharp drop. Let's be honest. It's
like mirrored BVS, didn't it? In all honesty, like dropped off. Most films drop off the second week, mostly.
Yeah, but these big films don't usually get. I mean, this is a 5-day weekend, so I guess it's different circumstances. But if this had been a normal week, I'd have been so intrigued to see the percentage drop off. I mean, it would have been. Normally for a blockbuster, it's good if it holds about 30 to 40%, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. When it's getting 50 plus, that's when you get the question marks out. And then you can look at the same thing. Wonder, obviously we spoke about it a minute ago. That was number 3. That got 32 million across 5 days, which is more than it did in its first weekend. Yes, it's a 5-day weekend, but that's really maintained. And I think that's one of them films. I mean, its budget's 20 mil. It's on about 90 mil already now, like domestically in America or something like that. That's good business, and fair play to that film because it does look good. But it's showing that not everyone's going to go to cinema to watch Justice League. There are families now. You got to put it in perspective. If you're a parent, you're going to take kids to watch Coco. You're going to take kids to watch Justice League.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, they probably did bring it out at a correct time. Like, can you imagine if they'd bought Justice League out in the summer? Like, if they'd have done that, like
it would have got trampled by. I mean, Spider-Man. We kind of mocked it, and yes, we've tried to end up making massive numbers, but that held strong, and unfortunately, that did disrupt films like Planet of the Apes that would have gone on for more. But if you'd have tried Justice League in this, that would have got swamped.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I know it wouldn't have physically been ready for that point. So around this time, there was no competition really, not much, like for at least a week or two, and that's really all it should have needed, really, to take it up to big figures.
Don't you think if they'd have pushed it back to Black Panther for that in February, I guess maybe March.
Yeah,
there's nothing out except
Pacific March is where it's like the steady.
Yeah, you get like one film a month at that point. They could have done a March, and they would have probably made it. They would have given them more time, more stuff, but they needed their bonuses. The guys at the top because they already went rich. We don't actually have a box office predictions for this weekend, which is a shame because their predictions aren't online yet. Mm-hmm. So off the top of my head, I'm going to assume that Disaster Artist is going to open up at number 1. The Coco is going to drop to number 2, Justice League at number 3, and Wonder at number 4.
Mm-hmm. Do you know when we're getting Disaster Artist? Are we getting it in December as
apparently we're getting it tomorrow, but I haven't seen it advertised anywhere in England.
Not in my local cinema, it isn't. So I do really want to watch that as well. So
yeah, it would be good to do a double bill of The Room in that as well. Mm-hmm. But that's, I mean, I think people started doing their top 10 films of the years. Disaster Artist has made a lot of these lists now, as has Dunkirk and Blade Runner. But this is it. This has been a long ass episode of Cinema Savvy News. I am absolutely shattered. We are both going to Manchester tomorrow for a big convention, so we've got to kind of run away early.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. But I guess, I mean, we've mentioned, I still think we can do it. We want to get our first Star Wars video up soon.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing some Star Wars stuff across the next few weeks. Given there's not really any films out, we know we've got Jumanji next week, which I'm looking forward to. But I'm just going to do it because I'm sure this has been like, share, comment, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're using them a lot better now. We're going to be on it more. We usually reply to people. We're going to have a better social media presence. That's our main thing now. So we're going to be on there, and make sure you come back next Thursday for our next episode of Cinema Savvy News, where I can't tell you if there's going to be a box office to report. I'm sure there will. I'm sure there'll be a lot of other news coming out over the next week. Maybe some more Justice League. There'll be another twist in the tail. Who knows? But this has been another episode of Cinema Savvy News, and thanks for listening.
See you guys.